Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into a really interesting piece from The New Yorker. It's called So You Want to Be a Dissident.
Right, by Julia Angwin and Amy Fieldsmeyer.
Exactly. And what caught my eye right away is how it starts off by, exploring our assumptions
Yeah.
about what dissident even means, especially maybe here in America.
Absolutely. That opening, it paints a very particular picture, doesn't it? Almost like a default image we have in our heads.
Yeah. It's not necessarily like the person next door.
Not typically.
They kick things off with these really powerful examples, people standing up to what the article frames as, clearly oppressive regimes. Think Alexei Navalny, Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah, figures who face just terrible consequences.
Yeah.
Very serious stuff.
What did you think about using those names right at the top?
Well, it feels strategic. Definitely. These are names people widely recognize, right? For courage against authority in these very specific, often tragic situations.
That's a certain tone.
It does, and it kind of sets up an implicit contrast, I think, for later.
And it wasn't just current figures, was it? They also bring in Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi.
Right, which broadens it out, connects the whole idea to this historical legacy, big social change movements.
So why do that? Why reach back to those icons?
Good question. I think by using those huge figures, the article immediately makes dissident sound like something, well, almost mythical, like these people with extraordinary moral fiber fighting obvious injustice.
So it sets a really high bar from the get-go.
A very high bar, and a very specific idea of what dissent looks like, usually on a grand scale, and importantly, maybe in places or times that feel pretty far removed from, say, our daily lives.
Okay, so the initial picture is it's almost the heroic outlier. Someone in these extreme situations challenging these huge monolithic power structures, often somewhere else. Does that sound right to you?
It does, yeah. It is a carefully built image, I think. These examples, they evoke this feeling of clear right versus wrong. It makes it easy to admire them, their bravery, without necessarily drawing a line to, situations maybe closer to home. This list sort of defines dissident initially as someone facing down unambiguous evil, often far away.
Right. So, okay, our task for this bit is just to pin down what this opening is telling us. How we first perceive a dissident based on the article start. It feels tied to confronting these overtly repressive governments, often risking everything, and doing it in places that, for many of us, might seem geographically or even culturally distant. Is that distance key, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that perceived distance is crucial. Geographically, yes, but also maybe the nature of the political system feels different. It allows for a certain admiration, maybe even reverence,
Right.
without necessarily triggering that personal connection, that feeling of, oh, could that actually be me or
Yeah.
someone I know?
Exactly. We see the courage, but it feels like something that happens, over there or back then.
Like it belongs in the history books.
Or on the world newsfeed, not necessarily something you'd bump into, in your own community.
Precisely. So the article starts by giving us this almost romanticized ideal of the dissident. The lone voice against huge odds in a system that's clearly painted as unjust. It's setting a very deliberate stage.
Okay, so let's just summarize this first layer then. The article reminds us, when we hear dissident, we often picture these incredibly brave individuals, people fighting oppressive regimes far away or maybe in the past.
Like Navalny, Khashoggi, Mandela, Gandhi, those kinds of figures.
Yeah, this idea of heroic resistance against really obvious injustice, often involving huge personal sacrifice.
And the key question hangs there, doesn't it? Why start there? By setting up this, what's called the traditional understanding, the authors create this point of contrast. It makes you, the listener, wonder, okay, what's changed? Or what different angle are they about to again? How might they challenge this initial view?
That's it exactly. Why kick off with what seems like such a clear-cut image? It makes you think maybe the meaning of dissident, or at least how we understand it now, maybe it's about to get a lot more complex.
Or maybe closer to home than we first thought.
Right. It suggests the whole idea of dissent might be shifting in ways we really need to think.